Walk into any supermarket today and you'll see a strange pattern. The shelves packed with colour, the bright reds, the yellows, the blues of the boxes and bottles calling you like a carnival. And yet, something about it feels off. Have you ever noticed how the cheapest things are the worst for you? How a bottle of soft drink or soda costs less than a bottle of water? And how frozen meals promise convenience at half the price of cooking something fresh? It's not an accident, it's by design. You're listening to The Luminary Room, and this is episode 10, Feeding the Feedback Loop. I'm Nico, the voice behind 369 Lumineer, and today we're investigating why unhealthy food stays cheap and people stay sick. But before we dive in, I'd like you to know this. I spent over 2 decades in the advertising and marketing industries, creating and executing global campaigns for giant brands like PepsiCo Foods, Cadbury, Schweppes, Frito-Lay, Coca-Cola. I've seen how the strategy works from the inside, how words, colours and emotions are engineered to make people believe they're deciding for themselves. And after decades helping feed that system, I now question the machinery that sustains it and the cost it's had on our collective health and autonomy. So let's start with the illusion of choice. When you walk through a supermarket, it feels like freedom. Thousands of products, dozens of brands, aisles stretching into what feels like endless possibility. But most of those choices belong to the same few corporations. In the US, for example, a handful of conglomerates dominate the majority of what Americans eat. PepsiCo, Nestle, Tyson Foods, Unilever and Kellogg's, among others. These companies control vast segments of the food system, influencing what products are available, how they're marketed, and what ends up on your plate. And the major shareholders of these conglomerates? Well, you guessed it, it's the usual suspects, of course. BlackRock, Vanguard and State Street. But more of that in another illumination session. In Europe, the picture is similar. In Asia, conglomerates like Nestle, Unilever and PepsiCo have adapted to local tastes, but essentially follow the same global strategy: low-cost, high-addiction food systems. Now, think about the last time you reached for something quick, maybe crisps, a soft drink or instant noodles. Did you choose it or did the store choose it for you? Where it sat on the shelf, the lighting, the price tag, the so-called special. It's all part of a psychological script designed to nudge, not offer. In marketing terms, it's called choice architecture. In practice, it's manipulation. So when Coke costs less than water and crisps cost less than apples, that's not market efficiency. That's a signal that your taste, your time and your health have been commodified. So how did we get here? Well, it begins with subsidies and ends with addiction. So in the US, billions are poured each year into corn, soy, wheat and sugar, crops that form the backbone of ultra-processed food. In contrast, fruits, vegetables and whole foods get little to no support. Governments talk about public health, but they fund the ingredients that make people sick. And why? Well, the simple answer is that corn syrup and seed oils are cheap to produce, cheap to store and cheap to ship. They don't spoil. They keep profit margins wide. And once they're in your bloodstream, they keep you coming back. So seed oils like soybean, canola, sunflower and corn are now among the most consumed oils on earth. They were once industrial byproducts. Now they're sold as heart healthy. Yet evidence continues to link excessive seed oil consumption to inflammation, obesity and metabolic disorders. And sugar? Well, it's not just in sweets anymore. It's in packaged mints, breads, sauces, yogurts, healthy cereals, which, by the way, there's no such thing, and natural smoothies. Have you ever wondered why it's so hard to stop at one crisp or one bite of chocolate? You're not imagining it. These foods are engineered to bypass satiety, to hit reward centres in the brain in the same way as nicotine or cocaine. And that's not an exaggeration. That's neuroscience. This is what makes the food system less an industry and more a loop. Cheap calories produce repeat customers. Repeat customers sustain corporate growth. Corporate growth funds more lobbying and marketing, and the cycle continues. It's not about nourishment anymore, it's about dependence. Supermarkets and fast food chains sit at the centre of this ecosystem. They don't just sell food, they shape demand. Shelf placement, pricing, and advertising are all coordinated to guide you towards what's most profitable, not what's most nutritious. Shelf placement, for example, is critical. Grocery stores around the world use structures called planograms, blueprints for how every product sits on every shelf. A good product alone isn't enough. Where it sits matters just as much. Global studies have shown that over 80% of shoppers research online before buying in store. So brands must align their digital presence with their physical placement. Eye-level shelves can boost sales by up to 25%, while premium spots like end caps or eye lens drive even more engagement. So, think about it next time you're in a store. The items at eye level or at the end of an aisle aren't there randomly. They're there because someone paid, studied, and planned for you to pick them up. In Australia and the UK, this looks like everyday low prices for soft drinks and frozen meals. In the US, it's value menus and combo deals. Everywhere, the strategy is the same. Flood the consumer with cheap dopamine disguised as dinner. Behind the scenes, big agriculture keeps the pipeline flowing. Fertiliser companies, seed manufacturers, logistics firms, and advertising agencies, they're all linked, all feeding off the same cycle of overproduction, overconsumption, and undernourishment. And then there's the question of who owns the land. What I'm about to tell you now is publicly available information. Bill Gates has become one of the largest private owners of farmland in the United States and has also invested in agriculture ventures across the UK and Australia. Supporters say he's helping to modernise sustainable agriculture. Critics argue that centralising food production in private hands gives one person disproportionate control over what the world eats and how it's grown. Add to this the expansion of genetically modified or GMO crops, which are patented and controlled by biotech giants. Seeds that can't be replanted, crops that depend on proprietary chemicals. The small farmer becomes dependent, the consumer becomes distant, and the corporation stands between them. It's a quiet form of control. You don't see it, but you taste it. The modern supermarket is the visible end of a vast, invisible machine. One that starts in the field, moves through the factory, and ends on your plate. So, let's connect the dots. When people eat cheap, addictive food, rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease rise. That creates new markets, not for better food, but for medication, weight loss programs, supplements, and medical devices. The same economic logic that makes unhealthy food cheap makes healthcare expensive, because illness, just like food, is a business model. The more you treat, the more you profit. And if the treatment doesn't cure but manages, that's even better. That's a customer for life. Have you noticed how the conversation around wellness has been co-opted by corporations as well? Vitamin drinks owned by soft drink or soda brands, low-fat snacks filled with artificial sweeteners, even so-called plant-based foods processed beyond recognition, made from the same seed oils and starches that caused the problem in the first place. The usual suspects I flagged earlier have turned health into another revenue stream. And so the loop tightens. Cheap food breeds illness. Illness fuels the medical industry. The medical industry feeds the illusion of recovery, while the underlying system remains untouched. So we pay twice, at the register and at the hospital. And this isn't just a Western issue. In parts of Asia where traditional diets once centred on rice, vegetables and fish, multinational brands have moved aggressively into markets once considered too poor for profit. They bring packaged noodles, soft drinks and fried snacks. Affordable, addictive and aspirational. And the result? Rising obesity, diabetes and heart disease across countries like India, Indonesia and the Philippines. In Europe, governments have tried sugar taxes, advertising limits and school meal reforms. And whilst some of those have had substantial pushback by corporations, the EU has maintained some of the strictest food safety and labelling standards in the world, setting baseline rules on additives, contaminants and traceability that member states must follow. For example, Italy often gets attention for its strict food quality and ingredient laws, and for good reason, but it's not alone. Across the EU, countries like France, Germany and Denmark enforce rigorous controls on additives, pesticides and GMOs, all under the guidance of the European Food Safety Authority. Switzerland and the Scandinavian countries maintain similarly high standards with strong rules on organic certification and traceability. In Asia, Japan is famous for strict inspections, especially on seafood and imported foods. So, while Italy's protections for traditional foods stand out, they're part of a broader international commitment to food quality that often goes unnoticed. But, and yes, there's always a but, these efforts barely dent the deeper issue. Subsidies still favour commodity crops over real food. And here's a fun fact. In the US, lobbyists outnumber legislators 20-1 on agriculture and nutrition policy. That's not democracy. That's capture. And still the story repeats. People buying what's cheap, not what's good. Companies selling what's profitable, not what's necessary. And governments pretending both can coexist. So what can we do? Well, it starts with awareness, because awareness changes behaviour, and behaviour, collectively, changes systems. Have you ever stopped to look at what's in your trolley, or even in your pantry? Not the brand names, not the colours, but the ingredients. How many of them are made from the same 5 or 6 subsidised crops? Corn, soy, wheat, rice, sugar, palm oil. That's the global diet now. A monoculture of nutrition as predictable as it is destructive. The irony is that people blame themselves for eating badly, for being lazy, for not having willpower. But how do you exercise willpower against a system designed to exploit your biology? Against products engineered to override hunger and manipulate pleasure? Against marketing budgets worth billions designed to make you think that treat means escape? The truth is, the system doesn't want you healthy. A healthy person doesn't buy as much. A healthy person doesn't medicate as much. A healthy person doesn't depend as much. And dependence, not nourishment, is what drives profit. Don't forget, a patient cured is a customer lost. That's their modus operandi. Have you noticed how the word choice keeps appearing in ads? Your choice, smart choice, healthy choice. But when every choice leads back to the same corporations, the word loses meaning. Choice without diversity is control disguised as freedom. Now, a quick minute on convenience, that modern virtue. We're told that convenience is progress, that faster means better, that we're saving time. But what do we do with the saved time? We spend it working longer hours, scrolling longer feeds, earning less in real terms, and paying more for the privilege. Fast food, fast life, fast sickness. Every shortcut has a cost. But the cost isn't immediate, it's cumulative. The 30 seconds you save by microwaving dinner becomes the 5 years you lose to chronic disease. That's the trade-off hidden in every ready meal. And yet, this is not about shame or guilt. It's about power. The power to decide what ends up on your plate and who profits from it. Price is not neutral, it's a message. When water costs more than soft drinks or sodas, the message is that health is a luxury. When fresh vegetables are twice the price of frozen pizza, the message is nutrition is optional. When a family can feed 4 on microwave burgers and fries for less than it costs to cook a balanced meal, the message, survival, not health, is the goal. But these messages aren't inevitable. They're engineered through subsidies, tax policies, marketing allowances, and political donations. And while governments claim to protect consumers, they protect markets first. Markets don't care about your blood pressure. They only care about quarterly growth. The question then is how we break the loop. Start small. Buy whole when you can. Cook when you can. Read labels. Always read labels. Support local producers. Share knowledge. Because awareness multiplied becomes resistance. Every dollar spent is a vote for a certain kind of world. And though the system is vast, it still depends on one thing: your participation. So, the next time you walk through a supermarket, look at the shelves differently. See the pattern, the bright colours, the fake discounts, seductive words like light, natural, fit, even organic. Then ask yourself, who benefits from this illusion? Who profits when you believe cheap equals choice? But let's not look at the world through rose-coloured glasses. We're in the middle of a global cost of living crisis, record high inflation and housing pressures. I get it. The priority is making sure you can feed yourself and your family. But at what cost? Your health? Feeding the big pharma machine? Corporations and grocery chains know exactly what these economic pressures mean. They push cheap, unhealthy alternatives and create the illusion of choice, all while profit margins rise and dependence deepens. Once you recognise the pattern, the next step is not just seeing it, it's deciding how to respond. Awareness gives you the choice to push back, to shop differently, to question marketing, and to reclaim control over what ends up on your plate. That's the moment the loop begins to break, because the loop feeds on blindness, and awareness is light. We live in an era of abundance that somehow produces deficiency. Calories everywhere, nutrients nowhere. Information everywhere, understanding nowhere. But if we can recognise the feedback loop, the one linking cheap food, chronic illness and corporate profit, we can start to reclaim something deeper than health. We can reclaim autonomy. The supermarket may be the front line of this struggle, but the real battlefield is the mind, because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And that sight, that awareness, is where freedom begins. You've just experienced another illumination session in the Luminary room. If today's episode gave you insight into the cycle of cheap, addictive food and the forces that profit from it, then subscribe, share and help spread the light. Every listener shines a little more on the feedback loops that have been hidden, manipulated or quietly reinforced for decades, showing us how systems shape what we eat, how we live and how we get sick. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical and stay aware. This is 369 Luminaire signing off.